Eddie, the time has come.
Greetings and salutations, guys. Eric here with my review of Venom: The Last Dance. I keep wanting to say The Last Stand because that was the X-Men title. And they keep promoting this as the final chapter in the Venom series, but like X-Men: The Last Stand and Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare, we'll see. It's Hollywood and it's a comic book movie, so I don't know about that. I have not been a huge fan of these Venom movies up until now, though I really do enjoy what Tom Hardy has done with this role and how absolutely bonkers it is, especially in that first movie. Second one, I think that one was just kind of a total mess. But yeah, here's the third one, and it's definitely giving, more of the same, I'd say, for better or for worse. It probably will offer everything a Venom fan needs, but I don't think it goes much beyond that for someone like me who is not quite opened up their heart to this movie incarnation of Venom. This installment finds Eddie Brock / Venom hunted by creatures who are followers of Null, an all-powerful, yet also currently imprisoned alien being who needs Eddie and Venom to free himself, with the Codex being the name for this movie's thingamabob. But in the meantime, we also meet a secret government agency underneath Area 51 who've been capturing and studying other symbiotes. They are led on the science side by Dr. Payne, played by Juno Temple, and on the military side by Strickland, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. Now, these are two excellent actors, clearly, who have a lot of impressive credits. I don't think they're given much to do here, especially Ejiofor. This is just very one-note role as far as like the hard-ass military man who thinks all aliens must be evil and we probably need to wipe them out. And on the flip side, you've got Juno Tempo's character, Dr. Payne, and she is much more, well, she's the opposite. She's the empathetic one. She's the, this is amazing. This is something we should embrace. Aliens, they're here. What can this mean for humanity? And it's pretty much just the bouncing off of each other of, wow, they're so very different. Juno Tempo is given a little bit more as far as backstory, but it is also a funny example of how this movie really doesn't trust you to retain information. So her backstory involving her brother, who she lost at a young age, is hammered home so much and repeated over and over again in multiple ways, just so we don't forget what is motivating her, even though I still think it's pretty paper thin. But look, people are here to see Venom, and I do think on that side of things, it again delivers, as far as they know what they've got here with the dynamic between Eddie and Venom, and what Tom Hardy is doing in the role. Of course, he's been now guiding the stories on these films. He has story by credits on the last couple. So that's the part of the movie that, is easily the most enjoyable, which is basically kind of a road trip movie because he's on the run. He's trying to make it to New York. He instead ends up in the desert, ends up getting to Vegas. There's definitely some enjoyable stuff here as we watch them move along, being chased by these different factions. And of course, the interplay between them and sort of this buddy dynamic / weird love story dynamic, whatever you want to call it, between Eddie and Venom. It continues here, and they go so big on it, and I don't think it always works, but when it does work, it works really well. And they also do a good job in this movie of continuing the sort of body horror aspect of Venom and how wild that can be. And here that expands to some animals that get infected by the symbiote for a period of time, including a horse, and people have seen a glimpse of a frog. And I think that stuff is really clever and is a really strange, enjoyable aspect of these movies that is very much Venom and pure Venom, because the other superhero movies don't have things like that happening. Kelly Marcel, who has written all three of these movies, has taken over as director here in her directorial debut. I do think this movie is much better paced and has a lot better energy than Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Yet still, it's often very silly, and sometimes it's flat out stupid, but it's also purposely trying to be goofy and funny, which is where you get such a strange mixture in this movie, because there are scenes that are clearly meant to be funny, and they are. And there are scenes meant to be funny, and I don't think they are, and they're kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit, if I dare use the word, cringy. And then there are scenes that are not meant to be funny, I don't think, and they very much are. A great example of this is a scene that you glimpse in the trailers where Venom, in full hulking alien form, dances with Peggy Lou's returning Mrs. Chen. It's part super cringy, but it's also a little sweet. And it's also embracing that super out there, bizarre vibe that these Venom movies have definitely included as part of their DNA. The supporting cast also includes Reese Fons and Alana Ubach. has the parents of kind of a modern day hippie family traveling along who befriend Eddie. It's a fun part of the movie, I think, and the two of them are very enjoyable. I will say though, casting Ifan's seems like this strange winky thing because of course he's Lizard in the Spider-Man movies, and more importantly, in the most recent movie we saw Eddie Brock in, Spider-Man No Way Home, he was Lizard in that movie. So it just kind of seems like a kind of weird, hey, check it out what we're doing. Isn't that funny that we're casting him in this movie? Though personally, I think it's worth noting that Lana Ubach has her own Spider-Man history too, because she voiced Liz Allen on the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, which is still one of the very best versions of Spider-Man outside the comics ever. There's also a great version of Venom on that show, and she was so wonderful as Liz, and her dynamic with Petey, as she'd call him. Oh, and by the way, they don't ignore the mid-credit scene from Spider-Man No Way Home, but neither the movie nor Eddie seems to want to dwell on it much, so we just kind of hand wave it away once it is at least addressed. I think that's the funny thing about this being the third movie and kind of really pushing that angle is that the second movie did have a huge selling point, which is Carnage. But this third one doesn't really, and even though they're doing the end of the world has the stakes, at this point does that really matter in any movie, especially a comic book adaptation? We've seen a lot of, oh my gosh, the world could end. So they don't really have like a big sort of bright and flashy selling point, because I don't think Null is Carnage as far as getting people excited, which is fine. Again, much better movie than Let There Be Carnage, but I did think that if you want this to be your big final chapter in your trilogy, at least on a marketing side, you might have something else that would make this a sort of more important movie. But no, they didn't. If we are to treat this for now as an ending, I think it's fine how it concludes. There is a nice little moments near the end that I think do have some emotion that slightly got me. I definitely have a bit of a arm's length relationship to these movies, but I thought they did a couple things that were nice. Although the very last scene, the cutting to credit scene, does something that is extremely cheesy. I did, even going into the movie, I thought, I wonder if they can end the movie doing this sort of this trope, and they did, and it was very funny, and yet it's also very Venom. Again, it's saying that these movies are cheesy and goofy and silly. Well, yeah, that is part of the selling point. So it's like I'm saying these things has somewhat criticism, but also I understand it's part of the recipe. The box office has proven that there is a large audience for the Venom movies, and I think this movie delivers what that audience is going to want, especially coming off Let There Be Carnage. I just think that this is a stronger film overall. It just kind of it knows what it's doing a little more than Let There Be Carnage, even as it includes all those sort of eye-rolling elements for me. But I think the people that are all in on Venom and this interpretation of Venom, they're going to continue to be happy. If you're asking me my favorite of these three movies, clearly it's not going to be Let There Be Carnage, but I think it'd probably still go with the first one, only because of the sort of sense of discovery in that one. And realizing, oh wow, this is what Tom Hardy's doing. This is a wild swing, and this is a really entertaining, strange swing in this kind of superhero movie. I think it's always hard when something like that happens and you continue on with sequels. I think of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies are similar because the first one, when no one knew what Johnny Depp was going to do, and there was also a lot of concern around, like, will this work? Will people go for this? I think that's why that movie, I think, is the best one, because once they know, oh, people are into this, and they lean into that in the sequels, I don't ever think it's quite as exciting. It can't be, because now it's sort of familiar territory. But yeah, they know what they've got here. They know that people are going to embrace the weird. There's a couple of beats here that made me laugh a lot. There's a part where Venom sees something and his reaction is like Jim Carrey in The Mask, as far as how cartoonish and almost like bug-eyed this alien creature with the giant teeth gets. Stuff like that. I almost wish they'd gone even further with stuff like that. Because if we are going to be so over the top, let's just really go for it. And sometimes they'll dial it back, and especially when they cut to the stuff with the scientists and the military, it's pretty bland, and it's just like, okay, we're kind of going through the motions here with some notably weak payoffs on most of the characters. But just following, Eddie Brock walking through the desert, getting picked up by a hippie family, going to Vegas. Sure, I didn't even really need Null and the alien threat. I could have just done the road trip movie, the Magic Mike XL version of Venom, the Last Dance, and I would have been fine with that. But hey, here we are, and so this is the end of the Venom story. ... Until it's not, because that's just not how these things work. But yeah, it's an interesting, weird little thing they've had here, because these Sony Spider-Man sort of spin-off movies clearly are not working with the Morbius of it all and Madam Web. But the Venom movies, they've done their thing. They have been a crowd-pleasing endeavor, as strange as they are, and as weird as it is to never have this version of Venom actually fight Spider-Man. Will that ever happen? We'll see. Perhaps there is a secret war or something of the sort that can let that happen in the future. So those are my, guarded thoughts on, Venom, The Last Dance. Again, it's fine. My review is, it's more of the same in a way that is good. It's decent, but it's also kind of not for me, but it hasn't been for me. So that's fine. If it has been for you, I think you'll be happy with this one too. All right, guys, thanks. If you can like and subscribe, that would be great. I'll be back with more soon. Take care. And yes, this movie does have both a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene, but they're kind of nothing burgers. You compare it to Let There Be Carnage, which was a movie I don't think a lot of people were psyched about, but then everyone was talking about that mid-credit scene, and oh my gosh, what does it mean for the future with the MCU? This one is not going to have people nearly as hyped up. That's okay, but it is funny that, you watch these scenes, you're like, oh, all right, that's fine.